So the first 3 episodes of Hamifruta, or My Next Life as a Villainess, was a prologue slash setup for the real story with the introduction of Maria, the main character of the game. So there was 3 paths that this series can take, like the story can take with Maria's introduction, and I want to kind of get into it. So the first path that the story could take is that Katarina is cursed to follow the same fate as her game counterpart and bully Maria to the point to where she eventually gives up and others have to step in. The main male characters of the story step in, turn against Katarina, and have to either exile her or kill her. Now, this is one path the story can take. And the reason how this can happen is that Katarina's hand is forced. She has to somehow get Maria away because she's accidentally doing things that may be interpreted as being evil or mean when she's not really trying to be, and Maria eventually just does not like her, which leads it to seeming like she's getting bullied. That is one of the paths the story could take. The second path, which I discussed in my previous episode review, is that maybe Maria is actually a bad person. See, as I said, since she is technically the main character and she's always being controlled by the player, it's never really been stated what her real personality is. For all we know, she might be a very rotten individual and is really evil to the core, but thanks to the player kind of jumping into her shoes and playing as her, she doesn't really get to show who she really is. So without the strings attached, basically, she's now able to freely roam and do what she wants as her own person. Is she actually a good girl, or is she a bad person? And so it could lead to where it's a reversal. Instead of Katarina being the evil one, Maria is actually the evil character and manipulating and bullying Katarina to get her exiled or killed off. Now that is a route the series can take. Now the third route the series can take is this one, which is about Maria falling for Katarina. Now, this one honestly seems very likely when you really just look at the way this episode presented everything and where the previous episodes were going as well, because it's very clear from these 4 episodes of Hamifruta that is currently out right now that Katarina has literally created herself a harem. She has created a harem on both sides. She's going for females and males, and she's not probably really trying to do it, but it's clear as day that she is flirting slash seducing a lot of characters around her within this story, and Maria seems to probably be falling for her as well, because when you look at what happened within this episode with Katarina and Maria's interaction, it's very clear that Katarina stole, her fiance's role, the main male character of the story's role. She came in like, just a hero, saving the day, sparing her from being bullied from individuals, etc., and she has found a new respect for Katarina. She probably looks at her as her savior, wants to be around her, hang out with her, and also with her eating the sweets that Maria, made, especially for her and the student council, it makes her really just fall in love with her even more. So it does seem like the third route is definitely a thing. Like, that definitely is seeming like where the story wants to take itself. But I highly doubt it's going to be that simple. And the reason why I say this is because of one key factor, and that is the fact is, it wouldn't be necessarily an interesting story if it's just about, Katarina seducing everyone and it's just a typical harem. There is so much that this series can do. There's so much potential, and there needs to be conflict, okay? Any story writer needs to have conflict. That's just, it's common sense. Even a harem, etc., something like this story, it needs to have conflict. Even if you don't like it, it needs to happen. And obviously, something is bound to happen to where it's going to put Katarina into a difficult spot to where either people view her as a lesser person, or she feels like she's going to die, or there's a twist with Maria. And one option that I was thinking about constantly while watching this episode when it came to its conclusion is that what would be a twist that nobody would potentially see coming, and that is one twist I want to talk about. What if, hear me out here, the fiancé to Katarina that is supposed to be the good guy in the story to swoop in and save Maria and all that, be her knight in shining armor, what if he, actually becomes very jealous because he saw Maria and Katarina, his fiancée, actually just holding hands. Now, obviously, there can be a whole misunderstanding, etc. This could be conflict, obviously. There you go with the conflict. But it can be much more than that. What if this conflict gets even worse? For instance, where Katarina's, soon-to-be husband actually thinks that, she's, going to be with her, and Maria's trying to, get her or court her away, and so he starts to bully her or make her feel very isolated. Now that would be a big twist. Like, what if, the main male character of the story turns out to be the real bad guy, and he does some awful things to Maria because, Katarina stole his spotlight, and there's really no reason for him to interact with her. And, Katarina's kind of stolen all of the spotlight from Maria, because Maria, she's now more of an outcast than she already was within the game. Because let's look at everything we know of when it comes to what this episode presented. Maria is a girl that comes from a very poor family. She is a commoner. So, obviously, we have the very typical story where, you have a common girl thrusted into a high-class school. Obviously, she's an outcast. People bully her because she doesn't belong there, etc. And even though she has a great gift with magic, many are really jealous of her, don't want her to be around. This is a typical thing that you see in these type of stories. But obviously, in these type of stories, you have it to where the female character, since she's getting bullied, but she has something that really shines and stands out because she's different from a commoner, obviously the noble boys or noble women will seek her out and potentially even befriend her. And see, this is where it makes this situation very different, because Maria is a little bit more isolated than she would be if it was just the game, because Katarina has literally stole all of her main key scenes throughout her storyline. So Maria doesn't really have anything unique about her at all, because look, one of the big details is that Katarina, she loves climbing trees. She climbs trees, she doesn't care about it, she's a weirdo that likes to farm, and, not really act like a high-class noblewoman. So when you look at how she acts, and then you look at Maria, they're very similar, so obviously the charm of Maria will not rub off on the other characters, so they won't see her as a very unique individual because they've already been with Katarina for over 7 years. So that's the big detail that many need to factor in, is that Maria has been isolated already. Katarina technically has done more damage, our main female character of the story has done more damage to her than the actual villain in the story did, because of just how she stole every scene from her since the very beginning. But like I said, this could lead into the husband, soon-to-be husband of Katarina, actually trying to be malicious to her because she is trying to, steal away Katarina, from him. Now that I could definitely see. So there is definitely a lot of unique things that this series can tackle, and I do think that there is going to be conflict. There has to be conflict. You cannot have these type of stories without conflict. I know that they can run off of comedy and jokes, and they can run off of romantic moments. I know these series do that, but there also needs to be some conflict, because that is also another key component to stories like this, and I feel like with it being, in another world, her worrying about death, etc., there has to be some form of twist to this that will make this very unique, because I've heard so many good things about this series. I've heard so many people really discuss this and say it's a wonderful series, so I want to bet there's going to be something that's going to just shock many of us. But, anything else really left to talk about? I guess one of the big details as well is the fact that Katarina, she legitimately has no idea how everybody is literally just faunting all over her. Like, she literally has everyone in love with her. Keith is in love with her. Alan's in love with her. Yeah, Mary's in love with her. You have Maria that's potentially in love with her now. Every individual character is pretty much falling in love with her. She's getting her own freaking harem, and I definitely sense a lot of arguments between the characters of fighting between each other of who actually gets her in the end. I definitely see something like that happening. I am excited to see where that part of the story is going to go. But I think that is pretty much about it. It's a good episode. Loved it from start to finish. Cannot get enough of it. I think many could agree with me that Hamefura, My Next Life as a Villainess, is such a unique series for spring of anime 2020, or just anime in general. It's just very unique, and it's one of the reasons why I'm just drawn to it as much as I am, and I think many can agree with me that it's definitely just a nice breath of fresh air from an oversaturated, type of series, like, for instance, being transported to another world. Now, as I said, I haven't grown bored of, isekais. I really love them quite a bit, but it's just nice to see kind of a little bit of a twist on the genre to such an extent, and I think Hamifru is just doing a great job with it. But I want to leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. Because for some reason, even if you hit the subscribe button, you don't always get notified. So if you want to get notified, hit that bell icon. And even if you don't do it for me, at the very least, do it for the YouTubers you do watch regularly and you love them and all that. Please do it for them. Because it's kind of hard times right now on YouTube. So I recommend it. If you have some YouTubers that you want to get notified for, hit that bell icon for them. It's very, very helpful. But I'll leave it at that. Love you guys. Be safe. Chibi out.